I've had very good reason to be reflecting on leadership over the past week in a new way. And I want to talk a little bit about what is leadership about, where does it link in with management, and I'm going to go through a bit of detail about one difference between leadership and management. And the quote this week is so applicable. And the quote is, "Collaboration, the ultimate intertwining of skills, passion, and knowledge, is what concocts the most shatterproof forms of change making." This from Ian Somerhalder, the actor. Now, this is very interesting. Basically, what he is talking about is that we're looking for collaboration. We want to intertwine skills, passion, knowledge, and that will concoct a sustainable way to bring change. And I want to talk about leadership and change. And the reason I've been reflecting, you'll understand quite soon. The reason I've been reflecting specifically about leadership and about my career, both as a leader and as a leadership consultant, a conscious leadership expert, as a leadership developer of developing leaders, is that I was awarded last weekend the Southern African Educators Hall of Fame. I was inducted into the Southern Africa's Educators Hall of Fame. What a privilege and what an acknowledgement for the work I've been doing. And it got me thinking a little bit about leadership and my career and so on. And one of the things that emerged from that reflection was, once again, the age-old debate between what is the difference between leadership and management. It's such an interesting conversation. I know, for example, Marcus Buckingham says that leaders are all about setting the direction and getting everybody on board, getting everybody enlisted to a rallying point. In other words, they need to hook into what people have in common so they can get everybody on board. Managers, on the other hand, he says, are needing to work with the individual and understand their wiring, putting teams together, getting that collaboration going that comes into that quote we just looked at. And that's really the job of managers, treating everybody as an individual and working with that. Now, one of the other differences between leadership and management is that leaders typically bring change and managers typically stabilize change. And so what you'll find is that change leadership, we do talk change management, but when you're talking about bringing in a change, you talk about change leadership. And it's the job of a leader. I think back on my career, some of the biggest leadership things I've ever done. For example, in the technical part of my career, leading a migration from one platform to another for an entire company, which involved implementation on a weekend, mobilizing about 30 plus staff to go and do the actual implementation. And these I consider highlights of my career. Another example would be growing market share in a particular set of products and working with that across a team of more than 20 salespeople nationwide, none of whom reported to me. It was an influence job, a leadership job, and quadrupling our revenue in that particular product range in 2 years. So, in fact, more than quadrupling. So this is the kind of thing that I see, that leadership is about change. And our quote this week indicates that a lot of that is about building collaboration. It's about influencing collaboration, which is really interesting. But the other part of it could be management, because it's putting the right teams together, which sounds a little bit more like management. But very often it's management's job to stabilize and leaders' job to bring change. Now, this can get quite messy. Who's actually doing what? And do you find people who do both? And absolutely you do. Very, very often you will find higher up in the organization where strategy, that rallying point, is most of the job. Management is a much smaller part. Whereas lower down in the organization, you very often find management is the bigger part, but there is still a need to hook into what people have in common. And so this has been a little bit of my reflection. But the real thing is this. If you are a leader, then surely your job is about change. I remember when I was working with Microsoft launching probably the biggest product launch they've ever done. And that was a change leadership thing. We were changing the market. We were changing the product perception. We were changing the way it is sold. We were changing what it's used for. That is a change leadership function. And so let me be a little bit vulnerable and say, the parts of my career which have been primarily focused around management have typically been my lowest points in my career. I am not automatically wired to be a great manager. The parts of my career which have been about leadership is where I've had my biggest successes. And so I thrive when I'm not in a positional leadership where my job is to influence. And I know, for example, one of my close friends, she thrives when she has the position, the authority in her type of leadership. And so I'm much more of a influence leadership. She's very much a position leadership. Not to say that she just relies on the power, but there's something that rises up when she has that responsibility. There's something that dies in me when I have that responsibility. And so I want a broader thing. And you know what? We're all unique, and that's what we need to be aware of. And if we want to implement change, if we want to have change that sticks, we better understand our own uniqueness, and we better understand the uniqueness of the people around us. And we all need, in that sense, what Buckingham calls the ability to get people engaged around the rallying point, as well as leveraging the uniqueness of each person. What does that mean to you? Where are you with your change leadership? Are you trying to lead change, or are you trying to stabilize change? What do you need? How about a bit of a conversation? Maybe you can even tell us in the chat, somebody that you've worked with, maybe a current team member or a previous team member, or maybe a current leader or a previous leader. What did they do that was so special about leading change and leveraging the team?